Hands, touching hands, reaching out, touching me. No, you know I'm not gonna sing. Tonight, we're gonna talk about posing hands. Stay tuned. Hey, gang, you didn't really think I was gonna go ahead and sing that song, did you? So, tonight, we're gonna start out with a little lesson, if you will, basically a little YouTube video all about posing hands. This is a question, it comes up a lot. This is not scripted. I wanna share knowledge with you tonight off the top of my head. This is going to be information that comes from my experience. So stick with me for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and I am gonna do my best to give you a complete brain dump of everything I can about hands and posing. And we're gonna look at some images because I know the question always comes up, can you show me examples? And you'll understand by the time I'm done why I don't show lots of examples. So let's start. The topic, posing hands. Get this question all the time. The fact of the matter is, it is an element of photographing models that so many photographers struggle with. And I mean struggle big time. But I'm going to condense it down into one really simple guide for you. You ready? Here it is, because it's like less than a sentence. When it comes to hands in portraits, when it comes to hands in most modeling pictures, the best pose, or shall we say the best way to pose the hands, is not to pose them. The best pose is no pose. Please remember that line. And gang, that applies to modeling, that applies to portraits. The best pose is no pose. Now, I know you're not going to be happy with that answer and taking that as a lesson. I'm going to show you what I mean, and we're going to break it down, but let me explain why. Body language is something that is driven in humans simply by emotion. In other words, we don't actually control it. We all do it. We do it instinctively. We do it without thinking about it. And we don't have a lot of control over it. We actually have to work very, very hard to control our own body language. So anytime that you can get your subject, whether it's a portrait subject, whether it's a model, maybe it's a neighbor or a relative that you want to use as a subject, make them look like a model, you're always going to have the best results if whatever you're trying to have them do, you build it around natural body language, which also means getting their emotions to sync up with what your picture is all about. And that brings me actually to the first thing that you have to kind of ask yourself when you're setting up a shot, again, regardless of whether it's a portrait, regardless of whether it's a modeling shot, doesn't matter what it is, but ask yourself, why are you taking the shot? If you follow me, if you've taken any of my webinars, if you've watched enough of my videos, you know my favorite question in the whole world, why? If you know why you're taking the shot, what is the photo about, right? What are you trying to communicate with the photo? Then it's going to be a lot easier to figure out what to do with the hands. And, even if it's just a picture of a pretty girl, well, okay, she's a pretty girl, so that's why you want to take the picture. But what are you trying to communicate about her in that picture? So think through this with me, gang, seriously. So, all right, she's pretty, and I want to communicate that she's pretty because I know that's what some of you will say. That's all, Joe. I just want to communicate that she's pretty. So think about it. Is a pretty girl likely to be tense and uptight? Is she likely to look nervous? Well, she might if you make her look uncomfortable, but is that how we want her to look? Is that kind of how we would fantasize about a pretty girl or a really handsome guy? Of course not. We want them to look relaxed. So understand that body language rules. You can have the best posing techniques in the world. You can have spent hours watching every YouTube video about posing and taking screenshots of this pose and that pose and this pose and that pose. And you can tell your subject, I need you to do exactly this with your fingers and your hands. And if they're not buying into it, if they don't believe it, if they don't feel comfortable with that pose or in the situation in general, their surroundings, their environment with you, if you don't accomplish that, then all those poses aren't going to do you any good. So I'm going to take this in layers. Like I told you, this is a brain dump. I have no script here, gang. Got a couple little bullet point notes. I am going to try and give you anything and everything that comes to my mind. And I see already Scott's got a question in there. I'm going to deal with that. If you have any questions that are specific to hands, type them in and I'm going to try and touch on those. But first of all, let's kind of work up the ladder in terms of skill level and challenge level, right? One of the easiest things to do with hands is give your subject something to do, right? Let them hold something. Maybe you're going to have them, if you're trying to do a glamour shot, have them run their fingers through their hands or fingers through their hands, fingers through their hair. Maybe you're going to have them rest their hands on something, but give them something to do, an activity, especially if you are trying to create some kind of a mood or a character out of this subject and the lighting and everything else, then yes, give them something to do. And that's always going to make it easier and it's going to help get them to relax. And Lolo soon. So pose is a 4-letter word. And you are absolutely right. You beat me to the punch. Pose is a 4-letter word. And part of the reason why, gang, you hear me say pose is a 4-letter word, if you as much as utter that word in front of a subject, it has the connotation of don't move. So I challenge you for just 15 seconds while you're watching or listening to me, don't move. Like literally, don't move, please. Don't move. After 5 seconds, you're concentrating so hard on not moving, your face is a blank stare. And after 15 seconds, you're actually starting to tense up and your body language is changing. So now you can go ahead and relax and you'll feel your body change in just 15 seconds, right? So this is why even the concept of a pose is not good. Now, I understand for those of you that spend too much time on YouTube, for those of you that watch too many videos, for those of you that have read too many books, taken too many courses, been to too many photography workshops, I understand that I'm an outlier. There are probably hundreds of photographers making YouTube videos, teaching workshops about posing, couples posing, flow posing, this posing, that posing, and they're making bank. They're making bank because they never actually teach you the way to get good at posing your subjects. What they do is they teach you tricks. They teach you about making sure that you have triangles and diagonals and leading lines. They teach you all that kind of stuff, but they don't teach you to really, number one, create a relationship and interaction with your subject. Number two, to show empathy for your subject. Imagine yourself in their shoes, doing what they're doing that you're asking them to do at that moment with everything else that's going around. These other workshops, classes, YouTube videos, books, they don't teach you about body language. They don't teach you any of those things. So I'm asking you, for those of you that have put in all that effort and done all those things and are still struggling, if you're still frustrated with posing, then give me a shot here. Put that stuff aside and just open your mind up for a second, right? So we talked about the idea, give them something to do. That's kind of an easy, almost obvious solution to a challenge. If you want kind of a 50,000-foot guideline, no rules, remember? No rules. Generally speaking, for a woman, your goal is to make hands look dainty and relaxed. So, Scott, you asked the question, will I cover? There's actually not a lot of difference in the way that you're going to approach men and women if you apply my philosophy. For a man, generally speaking, you don't have to make the hands look dainty, but you want the hands to look relaxed. One of the biggest reasons, and for any of you that have ever photographed a model or photographed just a person, but standing up, you have witnessed and you have pictures in your library of a young girl, especially, but guys do it too, more so the girls, standing with her hands, one or two hands, pressed tight against their legs. That, folks, is nerves. That is a person who is timid. That is a person who is uncomfortable. Don't take my word for it. Google body language. Learn a little bit about body language. It is simply not comfortable, not relaxed. So, general guideline. Excuse me. I think that's the first time I've ever sneezed on my live stream. How's that? So, for women, remember you want to make the hands look dainty and relaxed. For men, relaxed. In both cases, though, there will be exceptions. Let's say, for example, you are photographing a woman in a fitness scenario. Maybe she's weightlifting. Maybe she is just looking tough. Maybe she's an athlete. Then there will be times where you do not want her hands to look dainty and relaxed. Gabe, thank you. There will be times where you want some tension in the hands and some toughness in the hands. So you see, when you hear these people like, the rule is for women, dainty, relaxed. No. The rule is, what are you trying to communicate in the picture? So part of what I'm trying to impress on all of you, gang, is if you want to get good at this stuff, same thing applies to lighting, composition, posing, all of it. You actually just have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to what's going on in front of you, and you have to think, not just react, think. When you see artists and when you see photographers who are able to like walk into a situation and pick up a camera and suddenly just be incredibly creative, like it's just happening. It's just happening because they have put in the time and the effort and they have built the knowledge base and the experience base to be able to see all of these things that I'm talking about in real time. So before we even get to an actual pose, especially if you're photographing women, let's talk about one important thing that gets overlooked all the time: prep. If you have any thought in the back of your mind that you are potentially going to be photographing your subject's hands, and this is especially prominent for women, but it applies to men too, it is important that you are giving your subject directions before the shoot for how to prep their hands. So, starts out with simple things: lotion, soft, moist hands. Same with skin. I have naturally dry skin. If I don't put lotion on, by the time I'm halfway through the day, my skin is flaky and it looks ashen. You have to moisturize the skin. You should have, if you're setting up a home studio, or if you have a studio, you should have moisturizer on the makeup table. Don't assume that your subject will bring it. The other thing that's really, really important for women: fingernails. Nothing worse than being in the middle of doing a shoot and then you have this idea, oh, you know what? I want to bring your hand up here, and the hand comes up and either they've chewed off all their nails or, they've got like American flags on two of them and God knows what else on the other, or some crazy color scheme or glitter. Who knows? You have to prep in advance. The default go-to fingernail, it's kind of the always safe version. When I do modeling portfolios, when I do my shoots, if I don't have a specific need for the fingernail, my models are instructed clear coat or French tipped, excuse me, clear coat and thin French tipped or no tip nails. So clear coat just means no colors. It's like a gloss. And certainly if you're doing something and you're running into lighting issues and you know you have lighting issues with glossy nails, they do have matte nail polish. You can tell your subjects to use matte nail polish. It's available. If they don't normally do it, be a sport, go buy it yourself and have them do it, right? Don't just dump that on your subject, especially if it's for a creative picture for you. But you can do matte fingernails. The thin French tip, what that means, guys, that's basically where you see the little white at the tip of the nail for all of you men that may not know what a French tip is. Now, French tips can also make a creative statement, meaning it's kind of like fashion. The trends come and go. So sometimes those tips get to be really long, wide French tips. Other times they're really, really thin. Kind of the traditional classic tip is the thin French tip. Now, here's the other thing too. If you're working with young girls who are modeling, they've probably already encountered some of this, maybe, hopefully, but don't assume that your subject has the money to run out to the nail salon and get their nails done. So when I'm giving these directions to my subjects, number one, I'm telling them, listen, fingernails need to be, you know, clear coat or nude, basically, and then thin French tips or no tips at all. But I don't want colors, I don't want designs, anything else. And then in the very next sentence, I explain to them, if you don't normally get a manicure, no stress. Don't get a manicure. We can use glue on fingernails. If she can afford the glue-ons, great. She's going to go buy them. She's going to do them. If there's any chance that I think that subject is not going to be able to afford those fingernails or that's going to cause any kind of a financial problem, for like $6, you can get a box of 2 sets of glue-on fingernails at like CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, any of those. So just keep some in your studio so that you have them available. Plus, they come in handy if somebody breaks a nail, that kind of stuff. And the best part of it is, if the girl takes her time, follows the directions, and puts them on properly, takes about 10 minutes or so for a girl to put on a full set. They're usually pretty quick at it if they've done it before. If not, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. But if they do it to the directions, you can do a close-up, and you're not going to be able to tell that she's wearing glue-on fingernails. One little caveat about the glue-ons, they also make press-on fingernails. Basically, you pull a little tape strip off, stick them on. That seems like a super easy plan. I would actually discourage you from using press-ons. And I tell my models, don't use press-ons. The problem with press-ons, if the girl has any oil on her fingernails, the adhesive doesn't stick properly. Once the adhesive bond breaks, in other words, she could be taking her hands and sticking her hands in her pockets and pops one of the nails off because it catches the jeans or the pants. From that point forward in your shoot, that nail is not going to stay on properly. It will have a propensity to fall off because the bond was broken. Glue-ons work best. They're inexpensive. They're easy, period. The bottom line that I'm trying to get to here, that was a really long description. I want to impress on you, if you are not doing a picture that is about the fingernails, then it's important that your subject is not doing something to her fingernails that makes a statement, because that's not what your picture's about, right? So that's the thought process. Now, I talked about the idea, and I want to start to show you some examples here. I talked about the idea of, for women, generally you want the hands to look somewhat dainty and thin and relaxed, okay? So let me just, let me switch my screen over here really quick, and I'm going to show you, at least I thought I was going to show you, my apologies. There it is right there. Okay. I want to show you a series of pictures. You may have seen me show these pictures before if you have been to some of my presentations. I do use this set from time to time. This is from the same session as the picture that is the cover of tonight's video. And this is showing the back of her hand. And all we have to do is look at it. You don't have to have the ability to say it's right or it's wrong. But what do we see when we look at this? Well, number one, the hand looks much bigger. Number two, there's kind of a strength. It's clenched, right? So if the goal, notice I said if the goal is to have her looking relaxed or maybe demure, or even if we were going to do it with a soft smile, this brings tension into the shot. Also, one of the things that's really, really important once you bring hands to the face, gang, and this is super important, you want the skin tones to match. So if your subject has put on foundation, then, she's thinking she's a little bit pale. So she's putting on foundation that's got color on it. And you're going to go ahead and bring the hands up, even if you're doing elegantly, put some of that foundation on the hands too. Otherwise, you're going to have a shot where the hand is a whole lot brighter than the face. And the one thing you definitely don't want is this beautiful face and a hand that's brighter than the face, because that's where all the attention is going to go to. You want the attention on the face and on the eyes specifically, right? So we can take this concept, though, without changing the lighting, without changing the camera position, without changing basically anything, but we can start to tweak the hand. Now, again, I'm not going to tell you what's right. What I want to impress on you is you need to simply experiment and try things and just let yourself respond emotionally. Yes, get in touch with your inner feelings. Respond emotionally to what you're seeing. It's not about knowing in advance. Think about it, gang. There's the science, the physics of photography. Then there's lighting and the physics and the science behind lighting. And then we've got, all the gear that's available. And then we've got to learn how to do the gear. And then you've got rules of composition. And then you've got rules of, if you're going to try and remember all these rules, you are doomed to suck forever because you're human. And I don't care how smart you are, in the moment when there's a human being in front of you that you're trying to interact with and potentially other human beings around, you are not going to be able to mentally process all of these rules. Learn to create these relationships and then pay attention to your subject. Success in photography, it's in the details. It's about paying attention to the details. So this, just going from there to here, it's a lot better. Still nothing, it's not particularly elegant, but it's better. Now, if we open that hand up a little bit, now what are we doing? We're making the fingers a little bit longer, definitely a little bit more elegant. We can keep experimenting. Maybe we don't actually touch. Maybe we have the hand out to the side. Also elegant. And notice a simple guideline. Not a rule, because you can't call any of this stuff a rule, okay? I can't tell you, I was doing a little bit of research earlier today. I thought, you know what? Let me see what's on YouTube right now, because I did a hands video probably 4 years ago, and it's a short one. You're getting a lot more information tonight, but I thought, let me see what's currently on YouTube about hands, and I can't tell you how many videos I found. Well, the rule is this, the rule is that, you have to do this, you have to do that, and the part of it is none of those videos, not one, talks about the context of the photo. What is the photo about? Because that determines what you need to be doing with the hands. And I'm going to show you some more examples, but there's nothing that says you can't be elegant by bringing the hand away and just by simply staggering the fingers, soft, relaxed. Okay? Let me give you another little tip, by the way, while I'm showing you this stuff. The more you talk to your subject about their hands. In other words, oh, you know what? Your hand doesn't look good. We need to change your hand. The more you talk about the hands, the stiffer the hands get, the more awkward the hands will look, and the worse their expressions will look. Because now they are aware that you didn't like the way the hands looked. And so they're sitting there looking at the camera, supposed to be emoting whatever type of emotion you are asking for, but they're thinking like, that hand feels weird. Is it okay? Like, so you defeat yourself if you keep talking about it. So how do you handle that? Like if you're not getting it, like this set of shots, Joe, if that's happening, how do you handle that? You make it about you as far as your subject is concerned. You keep trying things. When you take a picture, especially actually, I was going to say of a beautiful young woman, but you know what? When you take a picture of anyone, don't be the photographer that, sets something up, anything, does the test shot, looks at the back of the camera, and is like, oh, crap. That's not going to get you a very relaxed, comfortable looking subject ever. So you lie to your subject, right? If you don't like this pose, then very simply, you're going to take a couple of shots. All right, that's cool. Let's see what else we can do. Try this, try that. But what you never do, and what I never do, is I never say to my subject, you know what, change your hand. What does that mean? I mean, what does that mean? And worse yet, I never say to my subject, okay, do something else. Now your subject is 3,000 miles away from whatever emotion you want them to emote because you've challenged them. Come up with something else. You have to give them an idea, and you should be showing them. So if anybody should be practicing how to make hands look good, it's not the models. It's you guys, photographers, male and female. So even opening the hand, I can't tell you how many videos I found where photographers said, never open the hand. Never show the inside of the hand. Never is a stupid word. Never is a word that if you are truly creative, you'll be like me. And believe me, there are people that are a whole lot more creative than me. But truly creative people embrace their disregard of the word never. Don't ever say never to me when it comes to what I can or cannot do with a camera unless you're talking about physics. And even then, I just may look for a way to get around the physics because that's the fun of being creative. If you're going to show the inside of the hand, you do, however, and I should say you should, however, be aware and be paying attention to the idea that for a lot of people, especially in the summertime, so even for a white person, in the summertime, if they have a tan, the inside of their hand is likely to be much lighter than the face because of the tan. Also, the inside of the hand for a lot of people can be wrinkly. There's already a lot of lines. So you'll notice, in this shot that I've got here, she's nice and pale. The inside of the hand is light. She has very smooth hands. But the fact of the matter is, before I did this set of shots, I did have her put lotion on. And I moisturized the hands, which immediately relaxes the wrinkles. Notice in all of these things that I'm doing with her hands, I talked before about the nervous subject with their hands pressed against their legs. Everything that I'm doing in these shots, very light touch. Nothing being pressed, nothing being pushed. Even this, where we got the open hand and we bring the hand up, it's not like, yeah, there it is. It's just soft, okay? So soft. Everything soft, gentle. So even when I'm talking to a subject, doing a shot like this or setting it up, I'm like, okay, I want you to bring that hand up. That's it. Now take the other hand, just really, really soft. Just set it in. And I'm doing it. I'm doing it as well. Soft, set it in. And I want you to notice, we'll use this shot as the example, okay? If I come up and my hand is here with these fingers out, like so, it's blocking most of my face. So placement is important, but this is not a rule, gang. This is take this idea and slide the hand back as far as possible. Now, I still have the face. Fortunately, her face is a lot prettier than mine, but I still have the face. And then automatically, when the second hand comes in, it's underneath. It's not blocking, right? Because at this point, even with my face, if I have my hand out here and my hand here, I'm taking part of the shape off of my face, which changes the shape of my face. By pushing the hand back and coming in, I still have the jawline. So especially if you're working with a subject that has a beautiful jawline, you don't want to hide that jawline. You want everything to be off. But you'll notice again, in all these shots that I'm showing you, the touch is soft. If it was a fitness model doing something with fitness, we would want a firmer, more determined touch. Another variation, hands open. Can't do it with every model. Can't do it with every portrait subject. It depends on the subject. It depends on their skin color. It depends on their skin tones. And it depends on how soft are their hands or not, right? You experiment. You try different things. If you are a photographer who is new to the process, don't worry. But what you do need to do is just like anything else, guys, you got to put a little practice in. You have to practice. Spend some time in front of the mirror and stare at yourself. I'm not joking. Stare at yourself. You will figure out this doesn't work. This shows the whole jawline. You don't need a book. You don't need a set of rules. You don't need to remember the guideline that says, don't block the face. You don't need somebody to teach you that rule. Folks, empower yourselves. You don't need me to teach you that rule. You need to put in the effort and say, okay, I want to learn how to do beauty shots like Joe, and I want to learn how to figure out to do nice hands. I'm not joking. Sit in front of a mirror yourself. And I don't mean 10 feet from the mirror, be lazy. I mean, get your face smack up against that mirror and get over your old self and look at the elements and the details. Knowing that when you have a pretty young woman with nice long, thin fingers, I'll talk about that element in a second, it's going to look 1,000% better than when you do it. But that visual experience is what is going to then trigger instinctively, automatically, when you are standing with a camera in your hands and a subject in front of your cameras. And this is why, gang, I'm trying to impress on you, and we're going to do more of this in the last frame. But I'm trying to press on you the way that so many people, especially on YouTube, are teaching photography. It is not helping you. So I'm going to change the game. You can come along with me or you can think I'm crazy, but we're going to change the game. But you've got to put in the work because there is no video that I can make that is going to be earth-shattering for you. I'll warn you now, every single video is going to go back to one word, practice. Okay? So again, we could go on with that concept pretty much all day as far as, potential changes and things that we could do. Let's go ahead and look through some images here. So I'm going to switch my screen. And I literally just, right before I came online, I spent about 5 minutes and I went back through my archives and just grabbed a whole bunch of images with hands in them. So I'm not even sure what I have here, but what I want to give you, so I'm going to give you kind of my mental run through of why did I do what I did? What was the benefit for it? What was I trying to accomplish with the shot? And I also want to point out to you, like some of these images that I am going to show you guys, like this one right here, this picture was taken in August of 2005. I could sit here and I could tell you every detail about this shoot. I'm giving you that as a challenge. I can't tell you how many times a photographer shows me a question or shows me an image. I ask them a question or like, oh, I don't know. That was like 3 months ago. I have no idea what I did. Like, really? How do you were there. You did it. How do you have no idea? The reason why you have no idea is because you're not paying attention to the details and you're learning how to do it the wrong way. You're not learning by creating experience. You're learning by watching a bunch of YouTube videos and remembering crap. It's not about remembering, folks. It's about understanding. It's about creating experiences. Okay? So, one of the things, the reason why I grabbed this one, and this one's kind of a no-brainer when it comes to hand posing, if you say to a person, male or female, cross your arms. Most people will go, in fact, here, let me just switch back. Most people will go like this or this, right? So the problem with doing this is, well, no hands. The hands just kind of cut off. They look awkward. So even for a guy, they look awkward. Also, I want you to notice my shoulders. I'm going to relax again, and then I'm going to cross my arms that same way. Automatically, the shoulders come up and I have less neck, right? So to do a shot with arms crossed, number one, if you're working with a subject that has a very short neck to begin with, you should maybe try to avoid that pose because there is going to be a little push, period. But the other thing is for a woman, number one, we want to see the hands, both hands, not just one hand, but both hands. Now, generally, if you get a woman that does this, and by the way, don't take my word for any of this. Actually put some effort in and try it with somebody. If you're married, if you've got a significant other at home with you, when we get done tonight, turn around and say, hey, pretend I'm going to take your picture, but cross your arms and see how they do it. Don't you show them. Just tell them, cross your arms and see what they do, right? And then experiment with a couple changes. So let's assume they do this. So the problem is we know we want hands, right? So if you just tell your subject, okay, yeah, but I want to see your fingers, they will look down. Now, the problem with that is, especially if it's a woman, the minute they look down, all that long hair drops, right? So part of your communicating with your subject, gang, is you need to look at your subject, and you see me do the finger thing before. It's like, hey, just look right here, but do me a favor. Don't look down, but take your fingers out. Now, what most women will do at that point is what you're seeing me do right here. And men will do the same thing, by the way, okay? I photograph mostly women, so I apologize if I keep using women as the example. But right here, okay, this still looks awkward. It looks closed off. It looks still like you're protecting yourself. So the way that you make folded arms work is just like you saw in that picture. And I'll go back to the picture in a second. You make it elegant. So for a woman, you want to bend the wrists and have the fingers relax and point up. Now you notice I'm not squeezing my arm really tight. Let me go back to that other shot. You'll notice here, I talked about light touch before, okay? She is not grabbing her arms. She is not squeezing at any point, nothing, and the fingers are pointing up. So what does that do? It creates a shape that comes back up and frames towards the face. The other cool part of it is if you are working with a subject who is thin, in other words, not overweight or not with a boxy build, having the elbows like that really actually thins the waist and creates that natural hourglass. Doesn't work on all subjects, works on some. Now, even with this, gang, when you ask somebody to do it, pay close attention because you will have people, once you get them here, after about 10 seconds, they're going to start to do this with the shoulders. Or like with this young lady, if you tell your subject, you get them all set up, and then you tell them, okay, lean against the wall, 100% of the people that you do it with will lean against the wall and then sink down into it. And then the one shoulder goes up, right? That doesn't work. So if that happens, it's okay. You get your person set up, have them lean against the wall, they sink into it, and then all you have to say to them is like, you know what, that looks great, but I want to get your right shoulder down. So all I need you to do is just kind of bounce off the wall a little bit and drop that shoulder. And they'll do it, and you're good to go. Right? But understand, the longer you keep them in that pose, the more the tension's going to come. So every now and then you got to tell them, hey, relax your shoulders. Right? So let's hit another one here. This is one that literally was just part of a modeling portfolio shoot. Super simple, basic picture. By the way, for those of you that care, this is bounce flash. One light into the ceiling, white walls. Super simple. But look at her hands. You tell your subject, place your hands out to the side like that, and you guys know I'm into symmetry, right? You're going to tend to have them press the hands down on the table. Even if they're not nervous, they're going to tend to press the hands down. So it's literally, for me, I'm just like, hey, listen, I just want you to relax the hands. Just kind of really soft. I'll do it to the side here. It's just, instead of them flat, I'm going to tell them just relax the hands. And I'm going to go like that so that they see what I'm doing. Real simple, okay? Hit another one here. Jumping things. I picked this one not because it's particularly a great hand example, but to make a point. This was a shot for a girl's portfolio where we were doing this little kind of hop. And literally all I was doing was giving her a mark to stand on and telling her just to kind of hop forward with one foot in front of the other. When you are doing shots like this, where you're building in some of this action, if you're working with a new model, if you're working with a nervous model, and when I say model at this point, model is whoever you put in front of your camera. I don't care about their experience level. If they're new or if they're nervous and you give an activity like this, you will frequently have a situation where what they're going to do is make fists, right? All the nerves and all the tension that is going on in their head facilitates itself as a fist. And your challenge is give them something to do that is going to kind of retard the process. In other words, make it harder for them to make a fist. Again, be careful how you talk about hands. So let's say you do your first 3 test shots because you wanted to get your lighting down, You wanted to get your focus down, and that's when you notice as you're looking at your test shots, every one of those, she's got a fist, and I don't like the fist. I want her to have her hands open. So you can't just say to her, open your hands and then jump. Because literally she's going to be like, okay, that's not going to work, right? And if you say to her, hey, you know what, you're making fists out of your hands. You need to do something more elegant. Well, what exactly does that mean? So literally in this case, what I did is I told her, and I'm going to do it from the front, but I told her, look, I want you to take your hands and bend your wrist. Here, let me go to the other screen. Sorry. Take your hand, bend your wrist, and hold your fingers up as high as you can, kind of in the back, right? So it's kind of like this type of a thing, and then do the jump. As she does the jump, the second she starts to move forward in her head, she's got to pay attention to the activity she's doing. She's stepping, and she's got a spot that she's got to land on. She's also got to look at the camera. She's got to keep this expression. So those stiff hands that are out the back start to relax as she does it automatically. It's a human thing, right? And so that's how I get the nice, relaxed hands. And I want you to notice, pay close attention, even in this picture where you can barely see her fingernails. And I'm not going to blow it up. I want you to see it from this distance purposely. In fact, can I blow it up? No, I can't. I'm going to actually, this is perfect from here. But I want you to look really close at her hands. Part of the thing that makes her hands look elegant in the shot is that she is wearing tipped fingernails. So they extend the fingernail ever so slightly and they create a nice little tip on each fingernail, which helps make the hands look more elegant. Okay? So let's hit another one here. Just simple stuff. Instead of sticking the fingers in the pocket of the jeans, just kind of relaxing the finger. Literally, all I told her is like, you know what? Do me a favor and touch your fingers together and just relax your hand and drop it. And that's what she did. Okay? When she first did it, she had it along her hip. I wanted to get a little bit more of an angle with the elbow. I was not thinking, I have to have a triangle. No. I just wanted a little bit more of an angle. It looked stiff with her arm down. So I had her bend her arm. Boom. There's the shot. Okay. Similarly, and this one's good and bad. So this is not a shot that I actually used because, number one, on camera right, I like the dead hand. Now, you'll hear a lot of photographers talk about never do dead hands, which is actually crap. But I would argue they're using the term dead hand wrong. Because in the fashion world, dead hands are really, really important, okay? Dead hands still have an elegance to them. They still have a shape to them, okay? The trick with a dead hand is you don't want it to be stiff, right? And you don't want it pressed. It's got to just hang like it's dead because then it will have a nice shape. So some photographers, when I'm talking about dead hands, they're referring to the hands that are pressed onto the body. I don't consider that a dead hand because the person's working really hard to press that hand. So I don't see that as being dead. Okay. So I wanted that kind of relaxed, dead hand. And if you just have them doing it off of their body, you need to give them a little bit of a character to be. Otherwise, it's going to start to feel very awkward for them. You'll notice in this case, her hand is actually, her wrist right here is actually resting right on her hip there, or just below her hip, okay, on her thigh. So it's got kind of a resting spot. On camera left, the hand is like, okay, but I'm not a fan of it at all. That's why I didn't use this picture. And it's primarily because I don't like how boxy the hand got right here. She's got her thumb tucked into the back pocket of the jeans, which I told her to do. Not her fault, my fault, right? What I wound up doing, and unfortunately, I grabbed the wrong file here. I'm sorry. All I had her do after I saw this shot and realized the hand looked kind of bulky was imagine this is the jean. She's got the thumb tucked in. I had her roll the hand. Whoops, here, let's go this way. So these are jeans. That's the hand tucked in. I had her roll it back a little bit, and it gets a lot thinner. So at no point am I looking at my subject and saying, wait, that's the wrong way to do that pose. Not even in my head. I'm not saying, oh, that's the wrong way to do that pose. I'm simply evaluating it from the standpoint of, do I like it? Do I not like it? And it's about anatomy and it's about body language. Does it look stiff? Does it look relaxed? Does it look sexy if that's what we're trying to do? What is the idea? What is the look that we're after? I'm not gonna do every single one of these here, but I want to go through a bunch. I'm already way over time here. Um, I was gonna try and do a Q&A tonight, so I'll give you guys a choice. I know what your answer is gonna be, but start typing. I can stop and do a Q&A, or I can keep going on this topic if you want me to keep going. So I'll keep going unless you tell me to stop. So, simple shot here. It's almost kind of like the old senior portrait pose, where she's leaning against this wall. But I want you to notice neither hand is pressed tight against the wall, number one. And number two, the top hand, instead of having her like awkwardly, like, get it up this way, which would be the logical thing to do, but it would look weird. I literally just had her turn it so that the fingers are coming to the camera. It makes the fingers longer and thinner, which actually brings me to another point. I see you guys typing. And Eric, uh, thank you for the $5 late fee. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to keep going. We'll finish this out. I do have to wrap tight at 7 o'clock tonight because I'm actually doing a camera club presentation at 7:05, literally. But um, if you're looking for a picture, this is something I should have mentioned earlier. I told you I'm going to do this stuff off the top of my head. If you are looking to do a shot, if you've got a shot in mind, and it involves hands. Like you're imagining one of those like, Lindsay Adler or one of my kind of shots where it's a beauty shot and there's hands. So right out of the box, you made it a little tougher. I don't mean like avoid it. I just mean you need to be looking for two things when you look for your subject. One, you need to be looking for a subject with a great face, great jawline. But then you also want to try and find a subject that has long, skinny fingers. So if you were to go to Google and Google hand models, right? Or go to the websites for the modeling agencies in New York that represent hand models, et cetera, you will find that the majority of the hand models that are out there, the people that are doing hand modeling, they have very thin, very long fingers. And it's kind of no different than like the regular modeling, how for many, many years, remember the models were always very tall and very skinny because of that whole adage, the camera can add 10 pounds. Well, it'll add weight to fingers too. Short, stubby fingers wind up looking really short, really stubby if they're not posed just right. So if you're planning a hand shot, thin, long fingers is where you want to start. Okay. Um, let's hit a couple others here. So I picked this one out to show you for a few reasons. Number one, this was actually a picture that I did 11 years ago for a model's portfolio. So she, I believe, was 21 or 22 years old at the time. And she was modeling in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a big college market. And believe it or not, colleges do hire models to appear in their advertising. They don't always use students. So for a young model in the Philadelphia market, it's valuable to have an image as a college co-ed if you are of that age. So simple shot, it is actually taken on a college campus. That's one of the benefits of teaching college courses. And, open up a couple books. We don't need to see the books. We don't need to see a whole classroom. Obviously, to help tell the story, she's wearing a college sweatshirt, right? Literally, I got this sweatshirt like in a clearance sale for $5. So I had the sweatshirt, but I wanted to do a shot that basically said she's a college student, but without her looking down, because if she's looking down, I can't show personality. For a model's portfolio, it's not about showing that the model's pretty. When they meet her, they can see that she's pretty. It's about showing that she can act. So I needed to have a little bit of something, something going on in the picture. So literally what I'm telling the model is, okay, so the idea here is, you're sitting out in this hallway, and it was like an open area outside of a big classroom where there were desks and tables where kids could study. I said, you're sitting here and somebody called your name and you looked up and it's that response like, hey, how are you? Right. And so, she's doing a lot of work, but think about it now. When we do the whole hand thing, normally what we do, if we were really like, oh God, the weight would be down on the hand. The face would be pressed up. So I wanted it to look like she was interrupted. Okay. I wanted it to look like it was a moment where something was just happening. So the hand is relaxed and she's just up. So it's not about, well, this is the way you pose a person if they're looking surprised or if somebody just called their name, right? That's not what it's about. It's about what's the story? What am I trying to say? Spinning wheels photography, this is a great question and one that I should have mentioned earlier, so thank you. Joe, you show a lot of hands. Do you recommend that they not wear any jewelry? You will notice in my photography, never's a bad word, 99.9% of the time, there is no jewelry for several reasons. Number one, jewelry is extremely distracting because jewelry usually has lots of little detail to it. Number two, jewelry will date a photograph faster, quicker than clothing will. Clothing cycles around. The trends come back, right? With some variations, but they come back. Jewelry, if you do a little research about jewelry styles and jewelry trends, they tend not to repeat as often. And when they do repeat, there are noticeable differences in the trend. So jewelry actually dates a picture really, really quickly. Plus, gang, and you've probably all done it, taking the picture of the pretty girl wearing the necklace, but the pendant's over here. That's inexcusable, folks. Now, the good part of it is you did that because you're human, not because you suck, because you're human. Google inattentional blindness. That's why you took the picture with the pendant over there, or the bracelet that's crooked, or any number, or the earrings that are twisted and have hair running through them in 6 different ways, all that kind of stuff. So those are all distractions. So you will not see jewelry in mine. And just so you know, this is not a Joe Edelman thing. Number one, there's a lot of science behind how much of a distraction the jewelry is. But number two, start to pay attention to ads that you see in magazines or ads that you see on the internet. I'm not saying that you will never see jewelry. Never is a bad word. You don't see a lot of jewelry unless that jewelry is adding something to the image that's going to help sell the product, right? So that's really my approach, period. I have nothing against jewelry if it's going to add something to my shot. But if it's not adding something to my shot, it's not going. Now, keep in mind, gang, if you're trying to photograph people for money and you're shooting portraits and things like that, you may not be able to tell your subject, hey, you have to take that necklace off, because that necklace might be from their dead grandmother and it has sentimental meaning, in which case it's your job to make sure that the chain, it's not twisted, to make sure that it's hanging centered, etc. That is your job. That is your responsibility, right? You don't get to say, well, they wouldn't take it off, so yeah, it looks like crap. No, fix the problem, right? It's all about problem solving. So this shot here, again, simple, she could simply take that cup and grab it, right? But that looks boring. So all she had to do, and this young lady, she was awesome. This picture is from a photo walk that I did with Manny Ortiz out in Chicago a couple years back. She was great. I can't take any credit for this direction whatsoever, but she was smart enough right out of the box. She grabbed that cup in her fingers and then just real soft. Boom. Light touch. Everything is about a light touch. Another school type picture. So this was a slightly younger girl. So this one, the idea was she was like of high school age. I did this one in a studio, didn't even go out on location. But again, I didn't want her looking at the camera because then the picture's totally cheesy if she's looking at the camera, right? So I wanted her looking off like she was interacting with someone. And since she's got the stack of paper, since she's got the notepad or the books and the notepad there, if she would have been writing, think about it. You're sitting there writing and somebody calls your name and look up, hey, right? It's like the natural move that would have been made. And while I do have her head resting on the hand, notice the hand is not out here. The hand is back here. Subtle things, little details. They're not rules. Those are visual observations that you need to teach yourself to look for. Here's an example where I did go with tension. Notice, which you don't see from Joe a lot. Dramatic lighting, heavy shadows, fashion is not a luxury, the consternation on her face, the unhappiness, and the hands add tension to help sell the story. So it's simply a matter of they made sense. So I'm sorry, but I don't consider that having posed the hands, because I didn't pose them. I didn't tell her, okay, do this, and don't move. No, I told her, hey, grab the bottom of the shirt and show me a little bit of belly. And she did that. And I was like, great. Now really focus your tension in there and really clamp down on those hands. because I knew that was going to put some tension in her face. And there's my picture. Super, super simple. Let's go a little bit further. I picked this one to show you the hand on the knee. We could have done her hand on her knee, but think about it. Just imagine if that arm was bent and the hand was resting kind of, on the top of the knee. Okay, just like boom. Well, then what you have is a scenario where it actually starts to look a little bit masculine. That's not an opposing book. That's my opinion. If that arm was bent, it would have looked a little bit masculine. So by letting her just extend the arm and just dangling the fingers, and literally she dangled her hand out, and all I did literally was tell her, lift your index finger a little bit. Boom, there it is, done. Okay? So instead of saying, I need you to have your fingers all at different places, which at that point now she's concentrating on her fingers, it was just lift the finger. It's a subtle little touch, but you have to look for it. You have to see those things. Okay. There are times where you do want to do awkward things with the hands. So remember, I started out this whole conversation telling you, consider why you're taking the picture. What is the point? What are you trying to communicate? So this was meant to be kind of an awkward, fashion-y kind of photo with really extreme lighting. And, she's wearing kind of, this nightgown slip, but obviously the goal was not to make it look sexy. So to have these awkward hands was perfect for the shot. It fit the posture. It fit the uncertainty of her expression. It's about creating that mood and that story. And gang, please, did I bring this girl on the set and say, okay, I want you to bend that leg in, I want you to push that? No, nobody's that good. I'm not that good. All right. All I did was talk to her about what I had in mind for the shot, what I wanted to accomplish for the shot, how I wanted it to feel. And as I'm telling her, I'm saying, maybe we do something kind of awkward with the hands, maybe rest it. And as I'm showing her these things, just saying, maybe we do this, but she's starting to try them. And now I can look at her and I say, oh, you know what? That's really cool. I love that hand. Just pull the elbow back a little bit because that's what I thought looked good. It wasn't about some book or some YouTube video that said, oh, that elbow's got to come back. That's not how you pose people, right? It's not how you do it. Okay. Let's hit a couple more. I'm running out of time here, but I want to get a couple more. Even something like this, it's a character shot, obviously shot with a wide angle lens, but even the hand, look at the outfit. We got the microphone. So what do you add? You add a jazz hand, right? Just a jazz hand. Boom. And the best part of it is you can say pretty much to anybody, hey, give me a jazz hand. They know, exactly what it is. Something like this. If you tell the person, hey, do a kick and throw your hands up in the air, look at my hands. That's what most people do. And that kind of like that right there is going to take all the attention away from her face. So the whole idea with this picture was to do a shot that showed that she is in great shape. She's got a beautiful figure and to give it some energy, right? Just really happy. So the first time I asked her to do the kick, boom, that's what I got. All right. Okay. That's not going to work. So I turned right around. I said to her, you know what? This time I want you to do it. I don't want you to snap your fingers. Like do it and snap your fingers. Right? Done. Now, the first 2 or 3 times that she does it and snaps her fingers, the expression's kind of weak because I've just taken her away from this and said, snap your fingers. So now she's trying to make sure she gets her fingers snapped. After the second or third time, that's easy. Then I could even say, hey, you know what? Kick that foot up a little bit higher. In fact, I did eventually tell her, you just managed to kick your butt the last time when you kicked that foot up. I want you to kick your butt every time. So now it's like, boom, she hits her butt, the foot bounces off, and everything's actually starting to relax as I'm taking the frame. That's because I'm watching my subject. I'm paying attention to what my subject is doing, and I'm looking at the frames to see how it looks. And now, where we're getting instant previews and we're doing, EVFs especially, all of that is just so much easier. Even, hand a person an iPad to hold, they're going to go like that, right? And a lot of people actually hold an iPad like that. You got to make it more elegant. And you don't want both hands to be identical. So I didn't want to have like one hand like this, the other hand like that. And that just looks weird if it's symmetrical. It's kind of like, doesn't fit right. So one hand had to be more relaxed. One hand had, to be more shaped. Boom, done. Holding fingers is always a great way to do things. You'll see I do the finger thing. I think I have a couple others in here where I've done the finger hold. Here, just holding the fingers, soft, touching the fingers, okay? But there's another posing idea here, and this is where I'm gonna wrap up for tonight, and maybe we'll come back and we'll revisit this topic again, but I'll have a new one for you next week. Um, Remember one thing about posing if you wanna have a rule to work with? So this is about the actual process of the pose. A good rule of thumb to follow. Now, this doesn't guarantee you a great pose, but it helps a lot along the way. If it bends, meaning the joints, if it bends, bend it. So you see with her hand, her wrists, her elbows, her knees, every joint that bends is bent to different degrees, but they're bent. Okay. Wow. So I totally underestimated how much I could do tonight. But you know what? That's an hour all about hand posing. So first of all, what's going on? Really, really quick. Let me tell you, Talk Chat still exists. The podcast will now drop every Thursday. TalkChat.com. It's still going to be there. Tomorrow is indeed the interview that Robert Trawick did of me. So you guys want to hear my life story? There it is. It's going to be tomorrow. Make sure you follow me on social media. You'll get all the links. Next week, I'll be back here with the last frame. It will be another lesson. My goal, I think what I'm going to wind up doing, though, is try and get the lessons maybe a little bit more concise, but maybe not. This one pretty good for an hour. I do still want to find a way to keep the Q&A in our universe so that you guys have access to ask me questions. Who knows? Maybe we'll add another, evening for a simple Q&A, something. But I'm going to take you guys along for the ride. We're going to kind of figure out this new format, but I like it. I think it's got a lot of value. I hope you do too. And I think as we do a little bit more of this, we're going to be able to get more people involved with more questions. Those of you that did ask questions tonight, they were awesome questions. Saw a couple good comments too. So thank you, gang. Have a great week. And go pick up your camera and shoot something because your best shot, it's your next shot. Adios, gang. Take care.